Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we are diving into something truly profound and honestly pretty mind-bending. Our whole focus today is firmly rooted in the teachings and writings of Guide Xuefeng, the founder of Life Chanyan. We're going to explore his fascinating concept of what he calls spiritual thinking. And look, this isn't just a minor mindset shift or a quick life hack. It's a completely different way to exist in the world. It challenges the very core of how we process information, how we make our decisions, and ultimately how we live our day-to-day lives. So grab a coffee, settle in, and get ready to unpack a radically different perspective on human consciousness.
Here is our roadmap for the Explainer today. We'll start with number 1, a fateful car accident, 2, defining spiritual thinking, 3, the Life Chanyan second home, 4, the 8 conditions, and finally, number 5, the ultimate state.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, a fateful car accident, the origin story.
You know, a lot of spiritual frameworks out there begin with, say, quiet meditation or a long, peaceful retreat up in the mountains somewhere. But Guide Xuefeng's revelation, it happened in a moment of sudden, absolute chaos. According to his writings, the true turning point of his life was a strange, terrifying car accident, and the very first thought that popped into his head after crawling out of that wrecked car and looking around the scene was simply, "God saved me." He notes that there was absolutely no need for logical analysis in that moment. To him, it was just an ironclad fact, a direct revelation. Then, get this. Just 3 days after that intense brush with death, a Portuguese couple knocked on his door wanting to teach him about the Bible. For Xuefeng, this exact sequence of events completely solidified an absolute realization for him. He concluded that his old life had literally ended in that crashed car, that he was saved by the greatest creator, and from that exact moment onward, his life just didn't belong to him anymore.
He actually captures this massive paradigm shift perfectly in his own words. He says, "Since then, my life has turned from the path of being ambitious and wanting to start a multinational corporation to the path of seeking the true meaning of life and existence." So, this one singular event completely rewired his entire operating system. He dropped the whole corporate ladder ambition instantly for an entirely spiritual pursuit.
Moving right along to section 2, defining spiritual thinking.
So, you might be wondering what kind of mindset actually emerges from a life-altering pivot like that. What exactly is spiritual thinking? And really, how does a post-accident mindset like Xuefeng's function when you're just going about your day-to-day life? Well, it's highly specific, and it actively pushes back against almost everything we're taught about how to navigate the modern world. Let's look at the stark contrast between these two modes of processing reality. We are all pretty used to rational thinking, right? We use our knowledge, we heavily rely on our past experiences, and we use logical analysis to make our choices. But Xuefeng argues that the second you start doing that, you're actually stepping into a trap. He warns that your logic and your experience can, and often do, deny the very first impulse of your heart. Basically, by overthinking, you're separating yourself from true spirituality. Spiritual thinking, the way he describes it, actually involves absolutely no active thinking at all.
It literally means making quick judgments and decisions based purely on the heart's very first impulse, completely bypassing any active pondering or weighing of pros and cons. It's all about sidestepping the limitations of traditional human wisdom. But, and this is a big but, Xuefeng cautions against trying to define this concept too strictly. He actually writes that if you try to nail it down with too rigid of a definition, you risk losing its originality. You risk trapping its magnificent and vast beauty inside what he brilliantly calls the prison of wisdom. It's supposed to be experiential, an organic flow, not some strict academic formula.
Which brings us to section 3, the Life Chanyan second home.
Okay, so what are the actual practical results of living with this mindset? Like, what happens when a person lives and creates by relying solely on spiritual thinking? Well, following his realization, Xuefeng states that his mind was just constantly flooded with these unprecedented mysteries. We're talking everything from the origins of the universe and life itself, to the intricate structure of 36-dimensional spaces, 20 collective worlds, complex classifications of people, 8 levels of thinking, and the 8 characteristics of the Tao. Impartially speaking, what is truly fascinating about his claim here is his method. He states he didn't even need to use his brain or carefully map these theories out on a whiteboard. He claims he would literally just open his computer and type out exactly what appeared in his mind, trusting completely in that spontaneous spiritual impulse.
And according to Xuefeng, the ultimate real-world proof of this effortless wonder is the creation of the Life Chanyan second home.
He describes this as a living replica of the 1,000-year world of heaven, a whole lifestyle created specifically for Chanyan celestials. He loves to point out that despite writing immense amounts of theory and managing so many moving parts, he always completed everything in a state that was totally relaxed and happy. For him, creating this heavenly life in practice, without all that modern stress or mental exhaustion, is the living proof of the absolute magic and effectiveness of spiritual thinking.
Let's move into Section 4, the 8 conditions. So how does a person actually achieve this state? Like, how do we get there? Xuefeng outlines a very strict 8-step framework of conditions that absolutely must be met. The first 3 conditions focus entirely on emptying yourself out. First, you have to let God occupy your body, mind, and spirit. Second, you must exist in a state of sheer emptiness, like totally free from any attachment or obsession. And third, you must act without intention, completely free from personal desire or purpose. It is a total 100% removal of personal ambition.
And that brings us to condition 4, which perfectly illustrates just how counterintuitive this entire philosophy really is. Condition 4 requires a person to constantly be in a state of death. Now hold on, he doesn't mean physical death. He means a total state of absolute surrender. It is a complete and utter death of the ego. You are essentially giving up the driver's seat entirely and handing over the keys.
From there, the next group of conditions governs how you outward face and interact with the world. Condition 5. You must be completely truthful and genuine. And Xuefeng is serious about this. He warns that if there is even a tiny fraction of insincerity in your words or actions, the entire spiritual edifice just crumbles. Condition 6. Never be in a hurry, never be agitated. You just have to take things as they come, acting in harmony with nature, without extreme joy or sorrow. And condition 7. Be totally unselfish. No attachment to yourself, no attachment to others, or even to any particular ideology or doctrine. You just watch events unfold naturally without constantly trying to figure out what you're gaining or losing.
Finally, we reach condition 8, attain a state of possessing nothing. You have to exist without controlling or holding on to anything at all. And it's super important to note here, he emphasizes that this includes people. There is no ownership, there's no control, and there's no material or social gain in spiritual thinking. It is absolute, total release of the whole shebang.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 5, the ultimate state. This brings us face to face with just how incredibly strict and absolute this philosophy is. Xuefeng is completely uncompromising on this point. If a person's body, mind, spirit, and soul are firmly in those 8 states, then boom, they're a spiritual thinker. But if there's even the absolute slightest bit of self-interest or personal desire lingering in the background, you're out. You cannot enter the state of spiritual thinking. It's a completely binary reality. Zero self-interest is literally the absolute price of entry.
Which leaves us with a truly profound question to end our explainer on today. Looking at this incredibly demanding, ego-destroying framework laid out by the founder of Life Shenyuan, could you do it? Seriously, could you completely abandon all your rational analysis, just drop all your carefully planned personal ambitions and desires, and allow yourself to be guided solely by the very first impulse of your heart? It is a massive fundamental challenge to our modern way of life, and it's certainly something worth chewing on for a while. Thank you so much for joining me today, Focus Learners. Keep exploring, keep questioning everything, and I will see you next time.